Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest Top Marks video, where we are going to focus on the Grover terms, generalisability and representativeness. Grover is an acronym that we use when studying research methods, and if you understand all of the Grover terms, you'll be able to evaluate sociological research, whether it's your own or someone else's, with confidence. To get the most out of this video, you might want to watch it and then write down what you can remember, or take notes as you watch and listen, refining them at the end. Feel free to draw too. Whatever works for you. To start then, Grover stands for generalisability, representativeness, objectivity, validity, ethics, and reliability. This video focuses on the first two, generalisability and representativeness, and there are two other Top Marks videos on the remaining Grover terms. There are a few key terms that are worth getting familiar with before we start. The sample, which is the specific group that you conduct your research on, and the sampling frame, which is the group of people you could have chosen your sample from. I like to think of it a bit like a teddy picker that you get in an arcade. So in this case, the sampling frame is all the yellow ducks inside, and the sample is the yellow ducks that you actually pick out. The other key term is target population, and this refers to the wider social group that you hope to be able to apply your findings to. In this case, it might be other soft toys, not just the yellow ducks. In terms of Grover then, it's probably easier to start with representativeness and then come on to generalisability in a minute. Both are features of research that positivists, more so than interpretivists, favour in sociological research. Representativeness simply refers to whether our sample, that is, the group of people we're actually conducting research on, reflects a cross-section of wider society. Does it represent the wider target population? For example, let's pretend that we're conducting research in a secondary school in the south of England. And let's say that we want to find out about the impact of sport on the well-being of 13 to 16-year-olds from working class backgrounds, so how happy it makes them feel, to what extent it alleviates stress, and so on. So our sampling frame would be all of the students that fit the description within this school. How would we make sure that our data are representative? We'd need to start by ensuring our sample, so that might be 100 working class students selected to take part in the research, is representative. Therefore, we would need to ask, do we have a range of ages, ethnic groups and genders, for example? This is essentially what representativeness is. Obviously, if we're just focusing on working class students, then it wouldn't be necessary to ensure that we included any middle class or upper class students. But whatever our target population is, we should make sure that our sample reflects its diversity. Representativeness links very closely to generalisability, so they are often written and spoken about together. Generalisability simply refers to the extent to which the findings from research can be applied beyond the target population. You'll probably have come across this idea already, if you've been warned by family or friends, for example, not to make generalisations about groups based on a single person or incident. In sociology, there isn't much point in conducting a study if the findings can't be used to make suggestions about wider society. With reference to our example then, our target population are working class students between the ages of 13 and 16. Hopefully, if our sample is large and representative, so remember a mix of ethnic groups, ages and so on, then we could take our findings and suggest that they might be true of others in a similar position. For example, if we found that in general, students enjoyed sport and reported feeling less stressed after 30 minutes of exercise, we might be able to suggest that this was true of all working class 13 to 16-year-olds in similar schools across England. We might also be confident that our findings could apply to other students in the same school, but also those in similar schools across England, the UK, or even beyond that. If our sample was small, say only 20 students, then it would be short-sighted to suggest this. But if it was larger, say 1,000 students, we might be able to generalise the data. So, overall, if you have a large, diverse sample, you should end up with data that are generalisable. Data are unlikely to be generalisable unless the sample of people is representative of the wider population. So, if you are ever conducting research of your own, or evaluating the representativeness and generalisability of other research, which some exam questions might ask you to do, here are 3 key things to look out for. Firstly, check if the methods used are quantitative or qualitative. Quantitative methods that produce numerical data tend to be higher in representativeness and generalisability, simply because it is usually quicker and easier to conduct quantitative research than qualitative research. It's far quicker, for example, to hand out and analyse the results of 100 questionnaires than it is to conduct 100 interviews before transcribing and then analysing the data. So research that uses surveys, questionnaires, content analysis, or a large number of structured interviews is likely to be more representative and generalisable than research that uses qualitative methods, such as unstructured interviews and observation. Secondly, focus on the sample. Simple things like the sample size and the location of the research can help you to evaluate it. An acronym I like to use when evaluating a sample is CASTLE, which stands for class, age, sex, time, i.e. was the research conducted at one point in time or over the course of a few years, location, and ethnicity. How much diversity is there with regards to each of these things? You can go beyond this acronym, of course. Things like religion or sexuality might be considered, depending on the study. With regards to size, sample sizes below 50 are generally agreed to be small. However, it is important to consider context. Qualitative methods usually have smaller samples, and this is fair enough. It is time-consuming. Also, consider the availability of appropriate participants. For example, finding 100 couples who are willing to be interviewed about their failing marriage is much harder than finding 100 teenagers who like sport. Overall, samples that have been gathered in, say, one town or institution, or on one specific group, like a gang, will lack the representativeness and, in particular, the generalisability of a nationwide survey, or one conducted across multiple settings that goes into the hundreds or thousands. Finally, look out for the sampling method used. The sampling method refers to how the sample is obtained, and the four main methods used are random, systematic, stratified, and snowball. Stratified sampling tends to increase the likelihood of a representative sample, and snowball sampling tends to be the least effective. Have a look at our video on sampling methods to help understand why. In terms of further revision or reading, one of the best things that you can do is to look at the methodology or research design of sociological research that you know about, and see if you can evaluate it in terms of its representativeness and generalisability. If you want some good examples of research that is high in these Grover terms, then the Office for National Statistics and charities and think tanks such as the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, the Sutton Trust, or the Economic and Social Research Council all conduct research on a large scale. Now you've watched this video, you might also want to see if you can answer these questions next time you're revising. Start by writing down all of the research methods that you know. How might each raise and lower representativeness and generalisability? Which sampling methods are likely to gain representative samples? Why? And which groups in society might be difficult to access and therefore gain a large sample of? For instance, I used couples in failing marriages in this video. Which others can you think of? Don't forget that you can subscribe to Top Marks in order to ensure that you stay up to date with all the latest revision videos. Just hit the subscribe button below. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps you on your way to sociology success.